Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. So in this wrap, I'm using 4 square 20 gauge soft copper wires. They're 8 inches long. My oval amethyst cabochon is 1/2 inch wide by about 1/2 inch long, just over 1/2 inch long. And it's pretty thick. It's probably about 5 or 6 millimeter thick. I chose 4 wires for banding because that, if I hold 4 wires against my stone vertically, that leaves me, with enough wire to capture the belly of this stone. If it were that I held these wires and my stone were still protruding, I might add a 5th wire. Or if I held my 4 wires and my stone were very shallow or narrow, thin, then I might have a lip, and then in this case I might have only used 3 wires. So 4 wires fits my 6 millimeter thick cabochon pretty well. Alright, so I'm going to bend these wires in half. I've already pre-straightened them and banded the middle. I'll take a flat nose plier. I made 16 wraps here with 22 gauge half round wire. And I'll just take my flat pliers. You can see my center mark right there. And I'll hold on to the wires, use my thumb and push a V into the wire. And that's about a 90-degree angle, a little less. I'm going to wrap this stone sideways rather than long. So you want there to be some space between the bottom tip and the cabochon. I'm going to go a little more bend than this. I'm not quite at 90 degrees and I want just a little more space down there. So I'm going to take my bend a little deeper. I'm just flipping the wire over so that I can grab it on the opposite side to make sure that both sides are nice and flat. And I'm just going to use my thumb and I'm going to deepen that bend to about 90 degree there. A little more true to 90 degree. And now when I hold my cabochon up here, I've got about 4 millimeter between that tip and the bottom of the stone. And that's pretty good there. Normally I show you to do this down here on the board, holding the cab down and then pulling these wires around and straightening them out here at the Bale. I'm going to show you a different way today, just holding it in your hands in case your hands are strong enough and you want to do it this way. So I'm going to hold on to my stone against my fingers here. It's not very slippery and it's pretty wide, so I think I can do this. I'm going to center this point to the bottom of the stone. I'm going to try to motion both sides of this wire up evenly until they touch, and I'm just going to look at my cab. I'm not quite center. I've bent the right-hand side wire a little more than the left-hand side wire, so I'm going to make sure my stone is very seated, and I'm going to take a little deeper bend on this wire over here, and that's pretty good there. The crisscross up top, I want to try to keep center to the bottom point. And I want to try to keep my wires, stacked on top and not at a slant. Okay, so that's pretty good. When I get it like this and I feel like it's pretty center, these 2 wires have crisscrossed up here, these 2 bundles. I'm going to just put them back side by side. I'm going to use my tape points to help me. And I'll just use my fingers and kind of pinch them together and work my way towards the stone. This gets a little tough on the thumb. This is these are 8 wires all together. So while it looks like it might be an easy thing to do, the closer to the stone you get, the more difficult it gets to pinch them together. So just go slowly until you get to the place where you feel real resistance, and you're trying to keep that point where they meet center to the bottom point so that it's even on the top of the stone. And you can do a little sideways jiggling. That helps when it becomes harder to pinch. And you want to get to the place where you're about a half an inch. I like that. Or wherever you like it. You could be a little bit longer if you want. If you want to be a little shorter, and see, I'm getting to the point where I'm off center because my thumb can't actually do this very comfortably. I'm going to come back down here on my mat. I'll put my point on a logical intersection. I'll make sure my wires are nice and together and vertical and side by side. And then I'll use my pliers to assist me. I'll hold down my stone and make sure it's actually positioned correctly and not slanted. I'll make sure that my wires are sitting flat on the board and not slanted. And then I'll just use my plier and make this pinch a little cleaner. And I'm following this vertical line right here to make sure I'm center. Okay, so about like that. And that's about a half an inch from where it comes together to the top of the stone, and about a quarter of an inch from the point to the bottom of the stone for this size stone. All right, and I could make that point a little smaller if I can bring it down a little further if I want to, and I can adjust that a little bit later also. All right, so it should look about like that. It's pretty even. And I'm going to flip to the back. I've got my tape flaps up, so this is the front. And then I'll flip to the back, and I'm going to make a little seat for this stone. I'll help hold these wires together with a third piece of tape while I'm working. It'll make it a little easier for me. So I've got them all side by side, and I'll just put that right there, about a half an inch up from the neck. I'll make sure that all of that is nice and center, and that's good. Okay, so I'll go to the back. Here are my tape flaps. I put this one on backwards, but it should be going this way. So this is the back of the frame. I'll come back here and take my chain nose plier or a fine nose plier. Your round nose plier works. And I'll touch only the very back fourth wire. I'm bracing against the wraps here with one of the teeth. I've got my finger in the loop here, holding the nice curve, and I'm just going to take this other tooth and touch only that back wire. I'm going to get up about 2 millimeters away from the wraps, and I'm just going to make a inward little dent, just like that. Okay, and then you can do the same with this side. Brace one of your plier teeth right there, the lower one. Put your finger in the curve here and hold your frame. Get about 2 millimeters up above the wrap with the other one, and then just push to the inside, and it makes a little dent. You can always come afterwards and refine that push. This last wrap might want to lift, and that's okay. You just tap it. Come over here and refine that little indent there, and that's a nice seat for the back. The wires will want to motion this way, and you'll just let them. So that's pretty good there. From the top now, just the 2 wires up top. It's kind of hard to see because I'm coming at them from the sides, but you just want to take a pinch and work them together, moving into your frame a little bit. Only the top one. Try not to get that second one, but if you do, it's okay. Just come to the inside here and pinch it back out. I got my second one there and didn't mean to. Missed this one altogether because I'm in the camera. So just take a couple of pinches right there. And just motion these two upper wires together and into the frame a little bit right there. And again, if you move any of the other wires, you can just come from the opposite side and pinch them back out with your plier and refine that. Okay, so it should look about like that. And it'll be easier for you if you're not trying to balance up into a camera here. All right, so that's the back of the frame there. My center up top is still centered to my bottom. And it might pull your frame in a little more narrow. So when you push the stone back in here, approach, enter with one side and then gently motion the other side back in. Lift those side wires so that they're truly on the side of the cabochon. And let that back wire rest nicely on the back, just like that. Okay, just like this. That's pretty good. You can put it down on your board. Make sure everything's laying nice and flat. You can take a plier, pinch the neck back together if you need to. That's pretty good there. All right, so we're going to release this upper wire and take it over the cab and dive it to the back. So we're going to release this third piece of tape here. And since I have these two bundles taped apart, that's convenient for me because I don't have to deal with a bunch of flappy wires up here. So what I'm going to do is just release the front wire. And you can do that easily by ripping the tape along the edge. Don't take the tape off, just rip it along its edge right there. And open it up a little bit. Keep the one side on to help you. Do the same with this one and just rip it on that upper edge. And then just whittle your fingernail in there and release that upper wire. This one too, from this side. And just release that single upper wire. So there they go. They're my two upper wires. Okay? And that should be enough to hold on to these bundles up here for you to work with. So we'll work one at a time. You're going to pull this wire slightly over the cab and you're going to send it to the back, but we'll just send it through the middle. One at a time here, this upper wire. I'm going to take a slight bend on it and remove the bend that I originally put on there. I'll use my finger and I'll help gracefully move it onto the edge of the cab, just like that. Once you're over that top shoulder of the cab and you think it'll hold on to it, brace, put your thumb right there, and bend that wire kind of down. Make sure you get that upper shoulder and just, out at a slant right there in the back, just like that. And we'll tighten that up here in a second, but let's get the other one over there, and then we'll put the wires back together. So we'll take this one, we'll motion it to the back, just at a slant, take that little bump out where it was bent, gently motion that onto your cab without making any harsh bends there at the bottom. When you get it up onto the shoulder, put your fingers right there, do a slight bend in that wire, take it to the back and diagonal off the back of the pendant. Okay, just like that. So you've got the upper shoulders. You should feel that that's got your stone. Okay, so let's put these wires back together now to make sure before we wrap those up. Get a fresh piece of tape. I'm just going to motion them back together side by side. and I'll put them back together just like that. Help me hold on to it. Stay off the neck about a ½ inch so you can work there later. And if you need to, you can get a plier and make sure that you pinch those back together the way you want them. Okay, nice and even. And now we can tighten these up a little bit. Make sure that the sides, the two side wires are truly on the sides of the cab. The back wire is truly on the back of the cab, nice and flat. And we'll work one wire at a time. We've got this on the upper shoulder. I don't want that to move, so I'll hold on to it with the front of my finger here. I've got the rest of the cab kind of held on here. Got my thumb braced on it here. I'm just going to take it to horizontal. We're going to come around to the front and just loop that wire. So I'm coming off of it horizontal. Let's just do them both. Hold it back here and bring the wire to horizontal. Make sure that those stay on your soft shoulders there. You can bring them in more or bring them out more, whichever you prefer. About like that. Try to stay close to this. Hold on to the front of the wire. Make a bend so that you're kind of looping that wire. Bend the tip so that you get a nice long bend in it. Go through the middle. It's 20 gauge, so pull a little, push a little. It's easy to maneuver. And then straighten out your leading wire and kind of go back and forth and tighten that loop up. Okay? Once you get a nice loop on it, you can use your plier, either a chain nose or a nice flat plier. I'm holding the front of the wire on the cabochon, and I'm just going to gently work that loop closed a little bit more and a little tighter. You don't have to slam it, all the way closed. You just need to make sure it gets it. It might pull that back wire slightly, and that's okay. So about like that. Get on top of it. Help it all the way around 360. Try to be above the previous wrap. So I've got 2 wraps. This one is slightly above the other one. I'm not killing the wires, but I've got them snug in those 2 wraps. And I'm just coming diagonal this way. Okay? If you want to drop a stone in there, utilize this wire to capture the front of the stone. Maybe we'll just do that for a quickie, and I'll show it to you real quick. Okay, so I've got a nice 360, and I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to make sure that if I'm going to drop another stone in there, I have to have a little back seat here for the stone. So if you pull that wire in during the wraps, just kind of jiggle it back out, a little lower so you have a little back frame there. Okay? You get that 360 nice, and then put your thumb right there and bring the wire, curve it just slightly back to the right, but leave a little flap right there to help you catch a stone if you're going to put one in there. Okay? You can take and just give a slight back bend there. And now let's work this one. Okay, my curve is nice. My stone is captured over here. So on this one now, I'll make sure that this upper wire is where I want it. I'll make sure that this is a nice 360. Take a nice long bend. I've got the front of the wire and I've got that curve along the back of the wire. Go through the center, pull through, straighten the leading wire, take your thumb and push to help it through, pull, stay above the previous wrap, and if you have to go back and forth a little bit, do that. Then when you feel like you got a nice 360, you're going to use your plier and start squeezing it closed. Your reference is going to be the size of the other one on the other side. So you just want to look over here and make sure you're kind of in the same place. So I go up a little higher. I lost my slant on that wire there. Use your plier and help you make that loop a similar size as the first one here and in a similar place. And that's pretty good there. And then you'll check your two front wires, make sure they're motioning in the same way, and that's good. You can continue this around. And when you get to the front, crisscross the pendant here. You can use your plier to help you squeeze that a little more if you need to. So it looks like the other one. And then put your thumb there and hold on to it and curve off the pendant. Okay. Put your thumb on the front of it and bend it to the back. Point it to the back. So you got this little bit of a cage up there for you to slip a stone into. And we have to just give some more back seat because all of that squoze some of this wire closed or further apart. So I'll take only this back one and I'll just jiggle it back down into center. And all of that shouldn't have altered your frame. The neck of your frame should still be nice. And these two wires are coming off into the back right there, right about the neck. Just make sure these two wires kind of laying down in the front like that. Come to the back. And with this one, I'm giving pressure to the front, but I'm just going to do a little flip of a shoulder turn there like we do. And I'm going to let this wire come down the back so I have more seat. Okay, just like that. We'll do the same with this side. Make sure the front looks the way you want it. Put your finger there to give a little pressure, and then just turn this one with a little flip over the shoulder like we do, and squeeze it down with your thumb and finger, just like that. So now we have more seat in the back. Before I squeeze these shoulders tight, I'm going to go ahead and sew these two together and finish the back, and that way I can treat these like little, open and closed book pages to set my gemstone in there, and then I'll squeeze it down. All right, so let me get about 3 inches of 22 gauge half round wire. You can use whatever you want. I'm just using a bit of half round like we've been using. Straighten it out with your finger. Put the flat side of the half round up against the frame wire. Give yourself a little leading inch so you can hold on to it, and just make 3 or 4 wraps, keeping the flat side against the square frame wire. And you're only wrapping these 2 wires, not the one inside, not the ones inside. Okay, so you could also be using 28 gauge or 26 gauge round to do this. Half round, you kind of have to keep the flat side against it. It's directional. So, but with the other 2, you could just wrap. So it's up to you. Okay, so I made 4 or 5, 6 or 7 there, just enough to give me some more seat. And I'll go ahead and snip these off. Cut it off with a couple of millimeter to spare. Take it and pull tight, turn that end down, get on top of it and pinch, and it'll slip underneath that wire for you. Okay, then you can do the same on the other side. Cut it with a couple of millimeter to spare. Turn the tip down, then get on top of it and just push it underneath the wire to end it. You won't see it. Okay. So after that's done, let's go ahead and take these two wires, part them slightly, but keep them, in that open space. And we'll just do a couple of little curls. I'm going to cut these a little bit shorter. I'm just going to make them a little bit shorter. Alright, so your pendant should be looking about like this. This stone should feel pretty good. These two wires should remain just on the soft shoulders or in more if you prefer. If you find yourself needing to tighten it up, worst case is you could make two hard inside turns right here, and that definitely will cinch it down. But we're going to do some other work that might also, including adding another stone right there. So I've got my back all tied up. I'm leaving these wires here just in case I need to do something other than curl them down later on. And I'm going to just spread these open slightly with my fingers, not much, just enough for me to get a gemstone in there. I have a couple of options. I certainly can drop a little round cap or something like that in there. I have several options actually. So without anything at all, I could find a nice, this is a 6 millimeter chalcedony stone, and I can jiggle it until it wants to drop into place right there. And that's very pretty actually. I might do that. Right, so you can fit something like that in there and then gently squeeze these two wires back down to help hold it. This one probably might even allow me to add a center wire underneath it if I want to. Okay. I could do something with a pointed back. Not much, it's not too deep of a space, but it is set up that it could probably take a pointed faceted gemstone. So this is 8 millimeter by 6 peridot, and I actually like it sitting in there this direction. It probably would fit vertically as well, but I kind of like this direction a lot. And then you could pinch these two in to help hold it, and also, add another wire or a little pin or something else to the bottom to help hold that. I don't think these will be long enough to come back around and do much for us, but we have all these up here. You could also, there's enough space there that if you have a tiny faceted one, this is 6 millimeter CZ, and I took some 22 gauge and I basically just captured it in a small coil, brought both ends up and did a little twist to get them together. And this I could also slip into here probably and use these two wires. Actually, if I push them to the back, I could slip these right in here, and there's a convenient space between those two wires right there to grab my gemstone and tie it on. These could be prongs also. I think I love this one, and for the sake of ease, I think I'm going to do this one. These could be prongs. It could be a little midway station. This is the little lollipop wrap at the end of your facet. Just make sure you have a couple of ends, and I'm using 22 gauge. This was about 10 inches around a 6 millimeter CZ gemstone. So I've got it through here. I'm holding it in place. While it's here, I'm going to go ahead and settle these 2 wires back down, making sure that I don't wreck my gemstone underneath. Yep, and that'll sit there quite nicely. Keep my finger there to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. Keep your thumb there to make sure you have pressure against it in the back. And just lift these 2 tiny 22 gauge wires up over that shoulder. We're just going to do a very discreet 360 and wrap that gemstone on. Okay. So just make sure it's centered nicely. I might have just pushed mine out of center. And I'll go ahead and take this side with my fine plier, come around the frame wire, go back and forth, pinch close and go back and forth a couple of times, not so much that you break the wire. Then go ahead and go around one more time. Pinch it close. Okay. Now we'll tie on the other side. I'll go ahead and get this one wrapped on. Make sure that's nice and straight, and then take it through there. Don't pull so hard that you destroy the cup of your gemstone. Just work it nice and firm. Get it wrapped on there a couple of times. So it's just coming around that side frame wire there. I'm pulling it a few times tight. I'm going to check the front, make sure my gemstone didn't move and that it's sitting the way I want it to. I'll make gentle nudges, and that's nice. And then I'll go ahead and cut these 2 little fragments off. Lift it slightly, cut deep, so that that cut is more to the inside and not living out here. So lift it slightly. Cut it back deep, pinch down that end. That's pretty good. So we've just added a nice accent gemstone to this, gave it a little bling. That could have been anything you wanted right there. And I've got some nice design started there. So I'll go ahead and remove this tape. I'm just going to go over everything. Make sure that my gemstone is sitting in there nicely. You might have to tighten these back wires up after you've fiddled things around, and if so, you can just give a little squeeze in here and bring those 2 in slightly more, and that'll tighten those 2 up. Come to the front here. Make sure that these are still set up and forward over your stone on that soft shoulder. You want to make sure that these 2 shoulders right here look about even, and you have some space to add wire or to add a couple of beads if you wanted a little tiny little beads there. But this is the basic frame for a 2-stone capture that I consider a 101 type frame. From here, you can take these, make a traditional or non-traditional bale. You can weave them, you can wrap them, you can curly them down the frame, and we'll continue some of these bale designs here in the next video. But I wrapped several of these pendants up in this very same style. I just didn't add a second stone to this one, but you see I easily could. It's done in the same kind of shoulder style without the wires coming to the front at all yet. This is an even larger stone, and it's done in the exact same way. I gave it some more in the back because it is a larger stone, so I pulled those a little more in instead of just, you know, letting it slope right there. I went ahead and made hard bends up here. And when I cinch that neck together, I have room for another stone there as well, or any kind of Bale design that I want. On this one, instead of taking them twice around the shoulders right here, I took it once around the shoulder and then crisscrossed it over the frame and tied it off right there. The other one, I took around the shoulder, crisscrossed the frame, and tied it off right there. The back is handled in the exact same way, and that gives you the same capture, but with a little crisscross design up there instead of a gemstone design up there or a blank design up there. All right, you can bring those upper wires closer together. You don't have to leave a big space up there. This is an oval that I set sideways, just like this one. But rather than giving myself a ½ an inch in space so that I could add a gemstone, I used my pliers and just pinched the wires way closer to the stone. This capture is the same. I just brought the 2 front wires up over the shoulders and around the back. I didn't go as far with this one as I did over here, but I could, you know, come back and wrap around again or do some other things with these 2 wires. But it's the very same frame, all of these, just with a little different application on the top and how we end it on the top. This one got a little crooked somehow, probably banging around over there, but so these are all the same. Here's my ruby and zoisite. These are all the same base frame, with the 2 front wires being handled in the same way. No space between this upper stone and where the wires come together, but here a ½ an inch of space so that I can embed a second stone. Here a ½ an inch of space just because I felt like it and I made some crisscross design. I might still embed a stone. Here the same and the same with some open options. I might not embed anything. I might do something totally different with this, because really the stone is captured right there and right there. I don't have to have these wires together up there at all. The stone is captured. I should probably use a little more backside on that. The stone is captured, you know, just right here. So this could be very minimal. This could be my capture right here, and I could take these wires off into some curly works and some chains. So this doesn't have to be a traditional Bale setup at all. Woo! Okay, you guys, I hope that sparks your imagination for this frame. This one is the traditional frame where the 2 front wires are pulled in, just like the back wires, and driven up the front soft shoulder of the stone, and then they continue into the Bale wires. So the only difference between what we did in here and what we're doing in Basic 101 is that we made, you know, room up here and drop those 2 front wires to the back. All right, you guys, we'll see you for a big Bale out of designs on the top. Thanks for being here. If you enjoyed this framing technique, please give me a thumbs up, leave me comments, let me know how you're feeling about this, and then let me know how you feel about the next video where we do a bunch of Bale designs. So hopefully you get yourselves a few stones set up and then you can enjoy the next one too. All right, much love. We'll see you soon again.